What are the darkest things happening in the world right now that people don't think of? LTAC, long-term acute care facilities. Basically, huge numbers of people that are brain dead and live with a trach, breathing tube through a hole in their throat, and a feeding tube through a hole in their abdomen, just sit in these human warehouses and rot away because their families won't admit that they're dead. Not uncommon for the very families insisting they be kept alive to never set foot inside the facility and see their loved one kept alive, like someone plugged into the Matrix. I call these places purgatory because they aren't quite dead, but they're definitely not alive. My favorite uncle is from Eritrea, and I swear they could make a Best Picture winner off of his life. Dude smuggled his wife and 10-month-old daughter out of the country to Germany right as the war was beginning. Tried to follow but was captured and conscripted. Forced to fight before being captured by the other side. Imprisoned. Had his trigger finger cut off, and was essentially forced into slavery. He eventually escaped one night, fled the country and got to Germany, only to find that after 5 years of not hearing from him, his wife thought he was dead and remarried. He ended up immigrating to the US, meeting my aunt, starting a small business, and retiring in relative comfort. His and my aunt's family kids are also still close to his ex-wife and prior child in Germany. Crazy life, and amazing to see he still ended up such a kind, great guy. The danger of keeping all your wealth in electronic form in banks. There's going to come a day where you wake up, and none of your ATM cards work for some reason. And the banks aren't opening either. There is a concentrated effort in the world to bring everybody under the same roof, of control. When this day happens, you'll meet your new masters shortly thereafter. And if you want to pay your bills and feed your kids, you'll do as you're told. The Western world, with America leading, is scarily closely near genociding trans people seriously. When you look into it, it's almost one-on-one. The rhetoric used by Nazis to marginalize and eradicate Jews, queer people, Roma people, and everyone else they put in camps, right down to the parallels between the Jewish question and the current-day trans question. Alienate, separate, eradicate trans children, paint trans people as evil predators out to corrupt society, convince people that wokeism is out to control and corrupt society when all they want is to just exist and have rights like anyone else. A few months back, it occurred to me that there are probably people in North Korea condemned to never leave the mine they're forced to work in. They live and die in darkness, as families struggling to survive each and every moment in underground caves barely large enough to crouch in, likely fighting others in there for food to survive. I can't think of a better description of a literal hell on Earth. India is absolutely doomed. West doesn't comprehend the scale of violence that is happening in India right now, and how worse it is going to get. The government is basically facilitating a majority tribe to destroy all minority tribes in the northeastern state of Manipur. This is a repetition of Gujarat 2002, and it is also an exercise to see how this could be repeated in several states in northern and northwestern India. Thousands are killed in this ethnic cleansing right at this moment. The misinformation is so successful that if the current regime doesn't end before the first generation of voters who are born after 2010 start voting, it will lead to the biggest ethnic cleansing event the world has ever seen, as all the kids who are born and raised in this hateful environment are made to believe that all the Christian Muslim minorities are anti-nationals. That's 5 years from now. Literally all the news media of India is Fox News and to the right of Fox News. All the business folks are Koch brothers and probably more right-wing than them. The difference between US, Germany, France, and India is that in India, the educated tend to be the most vile right-wingers who idolize Hitler and the likes of him. There is hope, but it is very bleak. This is perhaps the darkest period of the independent India, and I really hope my country redeems itself before it is too late. A Filipino domestic helper, the politically correct term, in Saudi Arabia, generally earns roughly 1,500 to 1,700 SR per month, and it is equivalent to about 25,000 PHP, almost tax-free. That is more than the average salaries of nurses, teachers, and other professionals who choose to stay in the Philippines. Domestic helpers are prone to being abused, but many Filipinos, especially the poor and lower middle classes, choose to take the risk. If they're lucky enough, they'll find unabusive bosses and even get some peace of mind that they'll get to eat during mealtimes. Plus, they get to send some money back home and help their family. The approaching phosphorus shortage. It's a central building block of life. We literally can't exist without it. It's a central ingredient in fertilizers, and industrial agriculture is burning through it at high speed. even though it's a finite resource. Farmers tend to overuse it a lot too, so we're losing it at a higher rate than necessary by any means. I've seen it being compared to oil, but the problem is, there's no alternative to it. So if nothing changes, we'll run out of it in a few hundred years. I've even seen articles that said it could run out in our lifetime if we keep accelerating at this rate. And then what? Once we're at that point, there's nothing left to do. There could be ways to recycle it from our waste, but I see precious little discussion about the topic, and even less being done. I'm not an expert, and only know this from articles and documentaries, but I think about it often, because I don't understand how it's not a huge topic for all of us. Slavery is alive and well, and there are more slaves now than ever before. Human trafficking goes on just about everywhere. Climate change has already reached the point of no return, and while measures are being taken to mitigate the situation, corporations responsible for the vast majority of pollution have successfully convinced a large number of people, including decision-making politicians, that it isn't real. There are several wars and civil wars going on around the world. There are several outright dictatorships around the world, including places where people commit suicide rather than live another day there. Extremism as a whole is on a rise many places around the world.